Turkish Airlines presents Business Africa.
Hello and a warm welcome to this new edition of Business Africa. I am Esmina Alabasi Ray, the top stories. Africa's internet economy has the potential to grow to $180 billion by 2025. However, the threat of cyberattacks is accelerating at the speed of digital transformation. Egypt enforced emergency measures aimed at guaranteeing a sustainable energy future following the 2023 energy crisis. The demand for business jets is growing in Africa as activities expand on the continent. Cybersecurity in Africa has become a crucial issue with the continent's rapid digital development. Numerous digital threats are targeting organizations, governments and individuals, highlighting concerning vulnerabilities.
The past few years have seen an explosion of cybercrime on a global scale. The number of successful cyber attacks has more than doubled over the last 5 years. This concerning trend is also evident in Africa. In 2023, the continent recorded the highest number of cyber attacks per week per organization. These cyber incidents can have disastrous consequences for businesses and governments, ranging from business operations being interrupted to massive theft of funds and the leakage of sensitive data. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the lack of preparedness against cyber threats could cost African countries up to 10% of the GDP annually on average. Social engineering is involved in 52% of successful attacks against organizations and 91% against individuals in Africa. About 29% of these attacks use fake websites mimicking corporate authentication pages, banks or payment systems. One of the main challenges for the continent lies in the insufficiency of IT security infrastructure. Nearly 90% of African businesses lack cybersecurity protocols, making them extremely vulnerable to attacks. Faced with this critical situation, experts are now calling for a revamp of Africa's approach to cybersecurity as the continent embarks on a digital transformation.
We are joined by Carol Njoya, a cybersecurity engineer and founder of Alces, an audit and risk management consulting firm. Madam, thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
According to the latest Interpol report, 1 in 15 organizations in Africa has been targeted by a cyber attack. What measures should governments take to address these threats?
What we can say is that we can already acknowledge the measures that have been put in place since 2020. For example, the African Union adopted a convention called Malabo, which consists of defining the rules of cybersecurity and data protection in member countries. Several states have adhered to this convention, including Senegal, Benin and Rwanda, and that's very good. On the other hand, it's insufficient because today, faced with these threats, we need national cybersecurity strategies that are developed by country. Some countries are leaders in this area, for example Benin, via the National Security Agency of Benin, which has stated their national cybersecurity strategy until 2030. Rwanda did the very same recently in the summer of 2024 and published its national cybersecurity strategy, which is based on fairly strong pillars, including awareness and cybersecurity culture, and also includes a number of measures such as monitoring against vulnerabilities. In Morocco too, we can acknowledge the implementation of a national cybersecurity strategy until 2030. These are some examples of leading countries, and these are good practices to convey.
As far as the private sector is concerned, are companies prepared enough to face these threats and protect their data and infrastructures?
From a business perspective, let's say that there is a paradigm shift to adopt. In other words, African businesses must now adapt to disruptive technologies. What do we mean by disruptive technologies? These are big data technologies. Blockchain technologies, artificial intelligence technologies are all of these that will change the game in the new economy market that African countries are moving towards. So there's a need to adapt. And as well as this on the business side, there's also a need to no longer wait to be the victim of a cyber attack before taking action, but rather to have the logic of preventing cyber attacks and also preparing for cyber resilience. To give a simple definition of cyber resilience, these are all the measures that a company can equip itself with to be able to restart activities following a cyber attack.
Could the quest for digital sovereignty, like that of Senegal, which aims to safeguard its medical data, become widespread in Africa?
If we look at the examples of countries like Senegal and Ivory Coast, these are countries which have, in terms of hosting health data, the most sensitive data, and which has the most expensive economic value. This is what's most sought after on the internet black market. These countries are resisting by demanding that their health data is hosted locally. And these are good examples of resistance in this area, and it's this type of stance which must serve as an example to other countries on the continent. These are shields. These are shields that are protective.
While in an increasingly interconnected world, won't this quest lead to an isolation from global networks?
Everything will also depend on how states take action. So that's why I was talking about national strategy earlier. With this, states need to contribute to make this kind of situation viable, and they need to cooperate. And I'm emphasizing international cooperation in this sense. Thank you for having me.
Egypt recently grappled with a major energy crisis. Thanks to investments in renewable energy sources and to strategic partners, the country has successfully stabilized its electricity network. Take a look at key measures implemented by Cairo to overcome the challenge and pursue a sustainable energy future.
Praised for its energy achievements, Egypt, after overcoming the 2015 crisis, now faces a new challenge threatening its progress. In July, Egyptians welcomed the news that electricity outages had ended after over a year of disruptions. To understand the root of this current crisis, it's important to note that power cuts in 2013 contributed to the fall of Mohamed Morsi's government. However, by 2015, Egypt had launched major projects aimed at transforming the country into a regional energy hub. The crisis of 2011 and 2013 had three causes: fuel shortages, reduced capacity, and increased consumption. The solutions involved granting exploration rights, discovering new gas fields like Zohr, the largest, which allowed Egypt to transition from an electricity importer to an exporter. Additionally, measures were taken to boost investment in renewable energy, such as Biba and solar projects and wind energy projects. The establishment of Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum also enabled Egypt to export gas to 20 countries. However, in the summer of 2023, power cut once again became a pressing public issue. In 2023, we faced a gas shortage, leaving power plants unable to generate enough electricity. The government was balancing two priorities: meeting international export obligations and ensuring foreign currency reserves, which were critical to the Egyptian treasury. To address this crisis, the Egyptian government temporarily imported $1.18 billion worth of gas and fuel oil, promising an end to power cuts by 2025.
Business aviation in Africa is evolving rapidly from luxury sector to a strategic necessity. It is seen today as a catalyst for economic growth, which enables countries to stimulate investment and development. Business aviation in Africa is experiencing impressive growth, with a 15% increase in private jet flights last year. This reflects a growing demand for fast and efficient air travel, especially in the oil, gas and tourism industries. Most recent data show that Africa has around 3.5 private jets per 1,000 millionaires, well above the global average of 1.5 and Europe's 0.9. While the European market struggles to return to pre-COVID levels, African countries are showing significant growth rates. As a result, more European operators are moving their assets to Africa. Major industry players are basing one or more of their aircraft in South Africa, Nigeria, or even building private terminals there. The number of active business jets in Africa is expected to grow by 8% annually over the next 5 years. According to the African Business Aviation Association, there are currently 418 business jets in Africa, with South Africa holding the largest fleet of 137, followed by Kenya and Nigeria. Private jet flights are operated to connect West Africa to Europe, North Africa to Europe and East Africa to the Middle East, the majority of movements remaining intracontinental. This expansion is crucial for overcoming the limitations of land-based infrastructure and providing essential connectivity for businesses and business travelers across Africa. That wraps this edition of Business Africa. You can watch it again on Africanews and Africanews.com.
Business Africa was presented by Turkish Airlines.